What's up everyone, thank you for watching a Montu Motors video, and today we're going to be talking about the Nissan Silvia. So to get started, the Nissan Silvia was in production from 1964 until 2002. It was a sport coupe based on Nissan's S platform, which was a front-engine rear-wheel drive platform. The Silvia spans 7 generations over its lifetime, and many people will recognize some of the more recent Silvias as the 240SX. The European market also received the 200SX, and the Japanese market even had an alternative version of the car called the 180SX. However, the Silvia is a slightly different car from the SX series. So the first generation of the Silvia was the CSP 311. It lasted from 1965 until 1968. And believe it or not, after this version came out, there was actually a short hiatus where they ceased production of the Silvia. It didn't come back until 1975 where they introduced the S10 variant. After the S10 came the S110, which also featured the awesome 240 RS, which was a very popular rally car at the time. Following the S110 was the S12 series. Then, the main ones we're going to focus on here, starting in 1988, was the S13, followed by the S14 in 1994, then the S15 in 1999. So to get started on the S13 Silvia, it was introduced in mid-1988 as a 1989 model. It was immensely popular in Japan and was heavily based on their first generation Zafiro, or the A31. The S13 Silvia was the first to use the trim designations J's, Q's, and K's, which were based on the face cards of English playing cards. There was also the club and diamond trim levels, which were based on the suits of the cards. The S13 Silvia featured Nissan's multi-link rear suspension, which was one of its first uses for Nissan, and also saw usage of the Hikis 2, which was their four-wheel steering system. In 1990, the Hikis 2 was updated and renamed the Super Hikis system. Also for the S13, it saw the introduction of the viscous type limited slip differential for certain models. Transmission options in the S13 Silvia were a 4-speed automatic or a 5-speed manual. And as far as motors go, S13 Silvias were initially powered by the CA18DE and the CA18DET. The CA18DE was a naturally aspirated dual-cam 1.8-liter 4-cylinder, and the DET version was the same motor but with a turbocharger to up the power. In mid-1990 for the 1991 model years, Nissan introduced the SR20DE and SR20DET. The SR20DE and DET also saw a boost in power because the displacement was up from 1.8 to 2 liters. So to cover the trim levels for the S13, the J's was essentially the base model. The Q's offered a slightly more refined experience and also received electric options and an available LSD. Then the K's received one of the biggest upgrades, the turbocharged CA18DET or SR20DET depending on the year of manufacture. On top of the K's and Q's models, you could also get the Club and Diamond selection packages that I mentioned earlier. The K's Club selection came with projector headlamps, a rear spoiler, and 15-inch aluminum wheels, while all Q's models came with automatic climate control. Then in 1992, they released the Silvia A's. Believe it or not, this does not stand for Aces. I was kind of surprised to find that it stood for Almighty. And more surprisingly, this model slotted between the J's and the Q's. So you didn't even get the turbocharged motor, which makes it even more confusing why they called it Almighty. You would think this would be the fastest model with all the best gadgets, but in reality, you don't even get a turbocharger on it. There was a unique version that came out called the Sil 80, and essentially what they did was they took the front end of a Silvia and then coupled it with the rear end of the 180SX. This was another odd model developed in Japan and was also featured on the popular show Initial D. Next up was the S14 Silvia. This debuted in Japan in late 1993 and was lower, wider, and had a longer wheelbase than the outgoing S13 Silvia. Powertrain options, however, remained the same. You still got the 4-speed automatic and 5-speed manual, coupled to the SR20DE, and a new version of the SR20DET. The biggest changes to the new SR20DET were the implementation of Nissan's variable cam timing system, also known as NVCT. This was featured on the intake cam of all these motors. There was also a larger T28 turbocharger to help add some power. Trim levels remained the same, however the Club selection package was dropped. They replaced this with aero variants of the Q's and K's that were offered with large rear wings and mild ground effects. There was also a styling update in 1996, which added more aggressive looking projector headlamps and tinted taillights to all models. And to improve efficiency, the turbocharger also received a new ball bearing center section. There was also some special edition versions of the S14 Silvia, one of which was the 270R, which was developed by Nissan Motorsports, or Nismo. There were only 50 270Rs ever built, and they were only produced in 1994. And the 270 is in reference to the amount of horsepower it produced. The 270R featured a vented hood with a front-mounted intercooler, Nismo's Edge aero kit, a heavy-duty clutch, and a two-way limited slip differential. All of the 270s produced were painted black, with Nismo 270R badging above the rear wheels and a product numbered plaque in the glove compartment. The tuning company Autech also produced their own version of the S14 Silvia as well. They included an aero-style HUD with white displays and gauges for oil pressure, boost, and voltage in the center console, along with a Momo steering wheel and a leather shift knob inside. Performance-wise, they swapped out the Garrett T28 turbo for an IHI VN14 turbo. This slightly improved throttle response and airflow. Autech also added larger 480cc injectors that were later found in the S15 Spec R Silvias, as well as a bigger 80mm intercooler. Then to improve exhaust flow, Autech added the Fujitsu Giken exhaust as well. All Autech Tune SR20 DETs produced 245 horsepower. From 1999 until 2002, Nissan produced the S15 Silvia. This was the final generation and had a few small upgrades over the S14s. For example, the SR20 DE was now producing 165 horsepower, and the SR20 DET was producing 250 horsepower. So if you remember from the S14 Autech version, which had 245 horsepower, now Nissan was offering more horsepower right from the factory. Gone were the playing card trim level designations, and were replaced with the Spec S, the Spec R, and the Silvia Varietta. Nissan also offered the Aero designation for models of the Spec S and Spec R, which had the more aggressive rear wing and body kit. The more entry-level version of the S15 Silvia was known as the Spec S. It featured a 5-speed manual transmission in addition to the 4-speed automatic, and 4-piston front brake calipers and an open differential. The SR20 DE was the standard motor in this trim level. The more performance-oriented version was the Spec R. Now, a neat thing about the Spec R is it came with a new 6-speed manual gearbox in addition to the 4-speed auto. It had the same 4-piston front brake calipers that were found in the Z32 300ZX at the time, but had a larger brake booster than both it and the Spec S. There was also a viscous limited slip differential to help this car put power down, and with many Nissans at the time, you could also get the HICAS system available in the Spec R as well. Finally, there was the Silvia Varietta. This was based on the Spec S model and was actually built by Autech and featured a retractable hardtop. Kind of a cool feature at the time, but not as popular with enthusiasts since the retractable hardtop adds a lot of weight to the car. So as far as tuning and motorsports go, the S13 through S15 Silvias were all very popular on the drift circuit, and remain so to this day. Locally, we have the Showtime and DeSoto Drift, and we see a lot of S13 Silvias on the track. The SR20 DET also remains one of the most popular 4-cylinder motors of all time, and is very common for American market 240s to have swapped over into them to make a lot of extra power. A base SR20 DET is very potent, but with a few modifications can push some pretty insane power from a 4-cylinder very reliably. And Silvias were even raced in the All Japan Grand Touring Car Championship, which is now known as Super GT. Both the S14 and S15 generations of the Silvia won the GT300 class in 1997 and 2001 respectively. Alright, so to wrap this video up here, I'm going to sidetrack it a little bit and talk about the videos that we make here at Montu. We do a lot of these informational videos for the purpose of informing our customers of what the cars we import are all about. Our main focus has been cars that we can currently import, which means any car that's 25 years old or older, we can legally import into the US and transfer to anybody we want essentially who can legally drive it on the road happily. In the case of the FDRX7, we talked about a car that we will be able to introduce next year. For example, a car made in 1992 will become legal in 2017. And our goal with that really was just to build hype, both between us and our customer base. However, we're going to change gears here a little bit and just talk about cars in general for some of our upcoming videos. In the case of the Silvia, the S14 and the S15 Silvia as well as the hugely popular R33 and R34 GTRs, these are cars that we cannot legally import into the US. Yes, I'm sure there's videos on YouTube of some guy who has them, maybe somebody on Facebook who shows pictures of their car that they have here in the US. Don't ask me how they got them, I don't know. You can have them as demo vehicles, but essentially that means they have to be driven with very low mileage. And if you import these cars illegally, I've heard of people having them impounded, which means somebody who bought a $70,000 R34 GTR and brought it over to the US had it crushed and was out all that money. Or you can even face prison time or big time fines, up to $250,000 for having an illegal car in the US. Essentially, anything that doesn't follow the crash safety ratings or emissions in America also would be considered an illegal car. A lot of these vehicles didn't meet this, hence why they have to wait for the 25-year rule. So hopefully that clears that up a little bit. Please don't ask me how much it costs to get an R34 GTR, S15 Silvias, etc. We cannot bring them in yet. It'll be, unfortunately, quite a few years. I want to see them here just as bad as you guys do. But again, we would like to talk about cars in general, again, with the S14 and S15 Silvia today, for the pure purpose of entertaining you guys, and we appreciate you watching our videos. And we hope we can produce some more exciting videos for you guys in the near future. I know a lot of people have requested the R33 and R34 GTR, and good news, I'm going to actually just do these videos for fun in the near future. I can't say when exactly they're coming out, but we will produce them for you guys. So something we want to do also to kind of reach out and just really interact with you guys via YouTube is if anybody has any requests of JDM market cars that they want to hear a video about, just send it to us in the comments. And if we get enough requests for certain cars, I'm totally down to make a video for it, especially if it's going to keep you guys entertained and to keep interest in JDM market cars. Alright guys, well we hope you enjoyed this video today and learned a lot about the Nissan Silvia. If you're interested in purchasing an S13 or older Nissan Silvia, see what I did there? Please contact us at sales@montumotors.com. And as always, thank you for watching this video and have a good one.
That's great.
It's insane power.
I would definitely recommend Monty Motors.
And I would definitely go through Monty Motors again and again.
Registration, insurance, all that stuff, but at the end of the day, they took care of every fear you could possibly have. They'll be able to answer it right on the spot.
That was a ridiculously simple process for getting a JDM car.
I couldn't be happier with my purchase from Monty Motors.